Totally. And you can find research that says that seed oils are really horrible for you and also that are really good for you. Hello and welcome back to The Wellbeing. My name is Madison.
My name is Rachel.
And today we are talking about general wellness culture in America. And I feel like this is a really important and not talked about enough topic.
Definitely. And I think it hits differently too for a lot of people that talk about what we people talk about. Warming up the mouth this morning. I think there's a lot of different sides to this too, especially when talking about toxins in the home and in your food and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I think a lot of times there can be like a fear culture with it too,
Mm-hmm.
like trying to scare everybody when you talk about those things. So
Mm-hmm.
we are in the realm of not creating a culture of fear or anything like that, but more
Yeah.
so just educating so people can make choices that they vibe with.
Yeah. Informed decision making. Like
Correct.
if you know that Windex is bad for you and you still choose to use it, that is your informed decision to make. But if you have been told that Windex is the healthiest thing for you and the glass in your home, and you haven't been educated that it's probably not a good thing to be spraying ammonia in your house, then that's not fair.
Hmm.
So I think that no matter what, your decisions are your decisions, and you get to make those, just like everything about being a human. But I think right now in America, there is so much fear mongering and like terror and all of these things going around that just don't need to be done. Like you shouldn't even like look at a seed oil and like red dye 40 is going to kill you. And yes, we talk about how these things are not good for you and you should probably avoid them. And I still do stand by that. But at the end of the day, nobody's perfect. I bought a thing of gummy candy the other day that looked fancy that people are obsessed with. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this looks good. I didn't read the back. The first ingredients are like beet juice and carrot juice or whatever. And then it's like red dye 40, lake 10, blue 8, or whatever the numbers are.
Yeah.
And
Yellow
and
5.
yellow 5, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, that's probably not good for me, but also like I don't eat this every day. Like maybe once a month I'll eat, like maybe.
Hmm.
And so it's fine. My body's gonna process through that and be okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think I totally agree with that. And I think to your point too, like culture has changed a lot where anyone can kind of say anything on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can be called out, but a lot of people, if we hadn't gone to get our doctorate of physical
Mm-hmm.
therapy, I would not know how to look at research studies and
Yeah.
actually look at them and know if what they're showing is true information, because there's all these other factors that you have to take into account when looking
Mm-hmm.
at them. Um, and so to my point, there's people can pretty much say whatever they want on social media, or they can find a research article and like snapshot the headline and be like, oh, this is bad. And it's like, okay, well, what kind of study was that? What was the population that was performed on? Like, there's just a ton of different factors that go into it. And I think that is also the other issue, is that there's a lot of people just saying whatever they believe and then finding like a research study that says what they think and then posting it like, oh, this has to be true.
Totally. And you can find research that says that seed oils are really horrible for you and also that are really good for you.
Hmm.
You'll find both. And the day we
Yep.
did all the research, we found both.
Yes, I literally felt confunded that day. That's like a Harry Potter term. It's like a spell that they do, confundus, like to their brain, because it just confuses them and throws them off. And that is how I felt that day when looking at research for that, because you just really had to comb through everything. I remember we were texting back and forth, like, wait, what the heck is this? This is crazy. But so true. Like, you have to know how to search for it. And there's very few people that know how to do that. And there's people that know how to do that way better than Maddie and I do. But we know the basics and can present it in, I think, like a logical and non-threatening slash also just like a really neutral way. But yeah, I think it it's difficult to know who to believe, what to believe, and there's a lot of people who have a platform simply by popularity, so it's just yeah, it's just difficult these
Yeah.
days.
And it's definitely easier to get followers and views and likes and comments and whatever on social media so you see it, right? That's how the Instagram algorithm works. The more engagement a post gets, the more people will see it, the more people engage with it, and then everyone sees it. Um, but people only get that when they say always or never statements.
Mhm.
They don't get it so much when it's like things are kind of in the middle and not very exciting.
Yes. Yes.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, and I think I mean, one of the tips that people give out, like people who try and help you grow on social media is like use a controversial statement and post it because that will those like hit more in the algorithm. So, yeah, it's just like kind of a messed up whole situation of where you're finding your information, and I think that is one reason we wanted to start this podcast and just like provide information that we believe is true, that we follow with our own lives, and also give the opportunity for everyone else to make a decision about like what they want to pick and put in their like toxin bucket, right? Um, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And you get to, some people are better detoxers than other people, and that is determined genetically. You can go listen to our genetics podcast about that, but your bucket is your bucket. And if you want to fill it with Botox and skincare that has toxins in it, or you want to not use that, but you want to eat, I don't know, a ton of artificial sweeteners and uh artificial dyes, like you get to make that choice.
Hmm.
And no one's gonna be perfect, and that's okay. But you get to make the decision about what to put in there, and no one's gonna be perfect. Like at the end of the day, everyone is going to have something toxic in their
Hmm.
body. You literally cannot avoid all of them. It's impossible. But I think at the end of the day, doing the basic, not very exciting, kind of boring things are going to be the things that get you further. Because most people think about like, I want to start biohacking and doing like cold plunging and saunaing and all these things, which are great and I'm a huge fan of. But a lot of people will start doing that, but like for breakfast, they have toaster waffles. And then for lunch, they have frozen burrito or whatever. And
Hmm.
not that those things are inherently bad, but they probably could be better options. My dog is like being a
Yeah,
spaz behind
if
us.
you're
Uh,
watching, and if
it's
you're not watching, go watch.
it's funny. Anyway, so I think at the end of the day, America as a whole profits. Well, I know when you eat bad food. And I guess I shouldn't say bad food because it's not necessarily, there's no bad or good here. But when you eat more processed, non-nutrient dense food, America profits.
Yeah.
And that's why it got made in the first place, right? Like they needed it to be more shelf stable. They needed it to last longer. They needed it to not be as filling so people would eat more of it. So they chemically changed the food to do that.
Hmm.
And when they chemically changed the food to do that, Americans got addicted to it and it tasted better and it was yummier. And so, yes, eat some things like that, but just don't eat all things like that. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Totally. Yeah, I think as long as you are doing most of the good things most of the time, you are set. Like Maddie said, I think the issue, for instance, like we just got a sauna, which I love it. And it's a great adjunct. Like I've been sleeping amazing. I think it's great for like deloading toxins and also like stress. And then also, I know it's like one of the risk factors for like to lower the risk of dementia or Alzheimer's. So all of that is amazing, but at the same time, there's other things that contribute to your health. So even for instance, like marketing is an amazing thing. So if you're for breakfast like eating a protein bar that you didn't make, like that's been processed and manufactured, and then for lunch like again, like Maddie said, you're eating another thing that has been like processed and manufactured, but it doesn't have like any of the so-called like bad ingredients in it. It's still processed food. So, yes, to some extent, like all of these processed foods are being marketed different and they look different because they're all like leaning to be more healthy so that we think that they're more healthy and we feel better about consuming them. But when it comes down to it, it's like amazing to some extent that they're focused on getting rid of certain ingredients in food, but that's not like the issue at hand. The issue is not none of us. It's difficult to eat a well-balanced diet because of the food that's available, because of the prices that are available, lack of knowledge. Like basically, how we used to eat has kind of lost its way, and there's been all these like fad diets, like keto, like eat only protein or eat vegan. Like what? Like there's completely opposite things being recommended, and everyone's just so confused and so lost that I think it's easier to just turn to like the marketed products that are quote healthy.
I totally agree. And like before, the one good thing that I think has recently happened is I think that it used to say that like cereal was healthier than eggs on the government websites or whatever. I'm pretty sure.
Mm,
I should cite myself, but um they just recently made it so like eggs are healthier than cereal. And that I think is a positive step in the right direction, like telling people you probably don't need to be concerned about the cholesterol in eggs unless you're eating like 6 eggs a day, which you probably are not. But you should be concerned with eating Fruit Loops, which could taste awesome, but probably aren't a good everyday situation. Like we used to call it vacation cereal. My
yeah,
mom would only get it for us on vacation.
I love that. My mom also never bought
Uh,
us
no,
cereal like
not
that.
allowed.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Hmm.
So it's just about kind of like how do we, how do you balance those things and not focus on what like the marketing says, but rather what things are actually healthy. And you can pretty much assume, I guess probably not 100%, but you can pretty much assume that things that come from the earth are healthy.
Hmm.
Steak, chicken, vegetables, eggs, cheese, like things that are not super, super, super highly processed, but there's differences between like processed, where like milk comes from a cow, they pasteurize it, and then they put it into a bottle, which technically that is processed, right? Because you're not getting it from the cow. But then there's ultra processed, which is like Doritos, which like
Like,
that's
what
not
is
even
that?
corn anymore.
No. What is in that?
Yeah, exactly. It's not even food. Food like
Yeah.
product.
No, yeah, that's wild. Um,
Hmm.
yes, I agree. I think of this all the time with mac and cheese, like, like a processed box of
Yeah.
mac and cheese. And then if you make it homemade, but I think kids that are exposed to like the processed box of
Hmm.
Kraft mac and cheese love it. And then like if they eat the homemade,
This
they're like,
happened to
this
me when I
is
was a babysitter.
gross. Really?
So, this exact scenario happened to me. I was in college and I babysat for the same family. They're amazing. This is just a funny story that happened on my very first day working there. So I had to make dinner every night for them, but they didn't like have a meal plan situation at the time. And so their mom was like, "Yeah, make anything." So I called my mom. I was like, "What is a seventh and fifth grader gonna eat?" I think that's what grade they were in. And my mom was like, "Oh, they probably love mac and cheese. Like, just make And she always made us homemade mac and cheese with like it was broiled and kind of crisp. It is like
Oh,
unbelievably good.
like
Like
five, that
so
sounds like five
it
star mac and
it's
cheese.
so good.
Yes.
And it was one of my very favorite things. And so she sent me the recipe and I made it. It took me like an hour. And the kids got home, they're like, "We don't eat mac and cheese like this."
Like they
And I
only
said,
want the box.
They're like, "Can you make us Annie's instead?" Which I also ate Annie's growing up. And
Yep.
Annie's mac was great. Like I'm also a huge fan of that. Do not get me wrong. But they wouldn't even look
Yes.
at it.
But
They're
like,
like,
is
that
that
that's disgusting.
homemade?
Like I cannot.
And that
Annie's?
homemade,
No.
no, no, no. The homemade mac and cheese that you
Mm.
made is still like
Hmm. It
infinitely
was
better
like
than
I was like
Annie's, which is marketed as like a
organic
healthy.
pasta and like
Yeah.
whole milk
Yeah.
and
So
which
they
like
didn't eat it.
mm-mm.
Mm.
I just put it in the fridge and hope their parents ate it. I think their parents probably did. I mean, like, they don't care. And if this family somehow finds this podcast, I love those kids like dearly. They're so funny. We end up becoming like such good friends. One of us, like, we still text. Like, they're great human beings. It's just like a really funny thing that happened on day
That is
one
so
of
funny.
babysitting. So yeah, it's just kind of like what you're introduced to and what you know. And that family also eats like a ton of vegetables and is really healthy and all of the things. It's just it looks different than the mac and cheese you usually eat. And I mean, obviously do not have a child and I am not a toddler specialist like someone over here, but I have seen a lot of things um about like why your kid really likes crackers but not blueberries. And it's not
Mhm.
necessarily because they taste bad, but like no two blueberries are the same, but every single
Mhm.
Ritz cracker is identical.
Mhm.
And that change can be really, really hard for kids.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And this is definitely like my OT counterpart because she talks a lot about feeding and that's like definitely
Mm-hmm.
like a sensory thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why, I mean, that's a huge reason too why kids who grew up with food a certain, and that's the same thing with like that mac and cheese, right? Like that mac
Mm-hmm.
and cheese that you make
Mm-hmm.
homemade might never taste exactly the same each time
Mm-mm.
you make it.
No, definitely not.
And so that is something that you can work on and should introduce, not should,
Mm-hmm.
but we recommend introducing early on is
Yeah.
because everything can have a different taste. And if you're exposed to that early on, then you're able to cope with it better, like as an
Mm-hmm.
adult or like as an older child. So, yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
definitely true.
I have a friend who I don't know a lot about his childhood, but I do know that I have saved in my phone a whole list of foods that he will not eat. And it spans everything from like dark meat, chicken and turkey to artificial strawberry flavor. It's like very, very specific things that he's like, I refuse to eat that. He's 30 something. So it is
Nice.
interesting depending on like what you are
Mm-hmm.
exposed to as a child for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't make you good or bad. Like you're not a bad person because of that, but branching out your diet and trying things, you might be surprised.
Yeah. I will say I do feel like it's easier to cut out like some of the processed stuff. Like for me, it is because when I eat, even like on the weekend, if I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like be naughty and buy like this bag of like super processed pretzels. I forget those ones that you can get at the gas station that like are so expensive randomly.
Dots,
I don't
pretzel,
Dots pretzel.
dots.
Yes, they're so good, but they're so randomly expensive. But anyways, I like got some of those recently and it is hard. It like after eating those, my body craves it and I'm just like I want more. Like I want more of that all the time, every day. Like I'll eat that instead of lunch. And I think those are properties that in our real foods don't necessarily exist to that extent.
I think also with exactly what you're saying, a lot of those foods make you feel hungrier or don't at
Hmm.
least make you feel full.
Hmm.
And they don't have that satiating response for whatever
Yeah.
reason, but you're sitting there eating like 2,000 calories in one bag of snacks.
Hmm.
And if you do that once in a while, not the end of the world. But if
No.
you're doing that every day, and I know before that this you were telling me how a lot of people at your big girl job are always asking you like, how do I lose weight? Do I need to do keto? And the answer is like portion control, very small calorie deficit. But if you don't even want to do that, if you just fill your plate with protein first and then vegetables, at the end of the day, you're going to get pretty much all the nutrients you need, and your body is going to start to lose weight easily.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like it's definitely healthy to say like you don't have to cut everything out. You don't
Mm-mm.
have to do that. But
No.
also some people are more successful when they cut those things out because then they're not craving them. And I think that's important too. Or just like find things that actually like curb your cravings. Like for me, it's like dark chocolate at night is like a couple squares of that and
So
like
good.
I'm good to go. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I totally
Hmm.
agree with that.
And
And
I also think if you're like a person who isn't a great cook and you're like, I'm not going to learn to cook, like that's not my thing, it is easy to get things like that are pre-made that are still pretty decent for you. So for example, I usually bring my own lunch, but I didn't this week. But there's a small grocery store slash like liquor store slash deli situation down the street from me, from this office. And the best thing they have in there is their chicken salad and their kale quinoa salad. And so I get both. And It is definitely more expensive than if I made it at home, but it's super, super convenient. I don't have to think about it. Its quality is solid. And like, it's one thing I could probably eat every single day. And that's like a ton of vegetables. It has a ton of vegetables in the chicken salad. And then obviously, like, kale and quinoa is self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it lasts me 2 days also because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of kale. Like, you like open the thing and it like explodes. It's like a bungee situation.
I
Uh,
like kind of hate when that happens because it's like you're
it's
like
like, what do
trying
you
to like
do?
eat it and you're like taking one piece off.
Like, I hope my desk is clean. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think that there's just good they make it pretty straightforward. Like, people are like, well, the rotisserie chicken at Costco is full with bad things. It's like, okay, but it's probably better than eating a bag of chips for dinner.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where I
And
think we've lost the plot.
yes, agreed. And I think there are ways to be savvy, cost savvy about healthy foods
Hmm.
too. Like we just split a half of a cow with somebody, and
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I
Okay,
know,
continue.
and which so amazing. Like we bought
Hmm.
local from a ranch near Fort Collins,
Hmm.
and like you can taste it first if you want.
Hmm.
Like everything is done super legit, and it was only like $6 a pound when you buy it in bulk like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and
I want to
like
buy, I say this every year, I want to buy half a cow.
yeah, this is the first time that we have done it, but
Hmm.
we have
I've never
had
done either.
we had to buy a chest freezer when Joe shot a deer
Yes.
like a few years ago, and he brought
Okay.
all this like meat home. I'm like, okay, like guess we're buying a chest freezer now. So we're those people, usually adults. But we just did that, and I think like for us, we're like, okay, we don't really want to spend like like maybe like $2,000
Hmm.
on this right now, but like you can split that with somebody else, or you can split it with
Totally.
like three other people
Hmm.
and spend way less and like end up saving
Hmm.
quite a
Even
bit of
if you
money.
bought a quarter of a cow, that is a lot of a cow.
Yeah, that's what we bought, and it literally filled up our entire chest
Hmm.
freezer. Yeah,
Yeah, that's enough
good
for like
stuff.
a year. And I have friends, so I was visiting somewhere the other day and I have two sets of friends there. And one set of friends, her chest freezer is full of like Amy's pre-made enchiladas. My
Nice.
other friend's chest freezer is full with venison that their dad shot and freezer muffins that she homemade with like zucchini and carrots in them.
Mm, mm,
And I thought that was a very, very interesting juxtaposition.
hmm.
Just both, they have chest freezers in their basement and what they fill them with, I think
Yeah,
was fascinating.
that is really fascinating.
Hmm. I don't know
Hmm.
why they both showed me their chest freezer, but
What should we do today?
yeah.
Well, if you come here, I'm showing you our chest
Okay,
freezer. You
see,
can
people like to show up
You're
and
gonna be
we're gonna
so
get one
excited.
when D gets an elk tag next year.
Oh, cool, cool, cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
I
you'll
don't really
definitely need
love
one.
elk, but it is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I'd rather have a cow. Just
You
my
can
own
take some.
things.
We'll bring some. If I come see you, I'll bring you some.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But
I'm excited.
anyways, that
I
is a
think
cool option.
for sure.
That is cost effective and
Hmm.
healthy. Hmm.
Yeah. And I think you can order it from a lot of places. Like, you don't, if you live in, I don't know, San Francisco or like the Bay Area, and you're like, where am I going to find a cow, you guys? Like, you live in cow towns, you can find a cow, I promise. Or you can like look up local 4-H or things like that, and split a cow in the summer. All my friends in high school did that. I mean, I am from a cow town, but people would
Yeah,
be thrilled to sell you their cow, like literally thrilled. And plus, you're
yeah.
paying for someone's college one day.
Yes, so
Hmm.
true. And that, yeah, that's the other thing is like it goes to a local business
Hmm.
that do things the right way,
Yeah.
and they're just crushing it, and you're supporting that. And so
Yeah.
I feel like
I
that's a
love it.
really cool place to start. And
Hmm.
then boom, like you have your really high quality protein,
Hmm.
like even if you
Totally.
eat it once a day.
I totally
Very
agree.
easy. Yeah.
And it's made right. I think
Yes.
the point here is that if you are focusing on like, okay, you look at your diet and like be honest with yourself. I've never met anyone who tells me they eat badly. No one has ever told me that.
Yeah.
But if you observe people's diet or observe your own diet and you're like, yeah, maybe that's not the best. Um, and like write down what it is that you're eating because a lot of times you're like, well, I eat chicken and vegetables for dinner, but for breakfast it's like a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios, and then for lunch you're having whatever they had at work, which wasn't great. And then someone brought cake for their birthday, and then someone offered you gummy worms at your desk, and then whatever. Like, oh, those things do add up at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to take a critical look at yourself and your personal diet and all of those things and kind of see what's going on
Mm-hmm.
generally in there and then make small changes.
Yeah, I think one thing that really helps me too is like during certain times of the month, I just like need something, right? Like I'm like, I need that right now. I don't care. I'm having it. But during like other times where I'm more rational and can control things, I always think before eating something, like, how is this going to make me feel? And even sometimes it's helpful to just write it down and be like, okay, if I eat that, like, I know I'm going to feel so terrible or I'm going to feel so tired. And like actually paying attention to like, when I eat this, afterwards I felt like this, and that is from that food versus like if I eat a really nourishing, like a salad, like with protein for lunch, I feel so good and you feel so energized. And honestly, you don't even have to work to feel like happy and excited. You just feel better. So that's like a huge piece of that motivates me is like focusing on how I feel.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's
Mhm.
a good way of going about it. I like to focus on just like looking in my fridge slash pantry and being like, do I have more ingredients in here or do I have more foods I could just pull out and eat? And I don't like to count like cottage cheese or yogurt.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Doesn't count. I don't think. In my personal opinion, it doesn't count. But
Yeah.
I saw an Instagram reel the other day that was like, I'm trying to become an ingredients home and I don't even know where to start. Like, do you make your own dips? Like, this is very overwhelming, but I know that it's going to be better for me. I think people like to start with making sourdough bread. I've had three sourdough starters mold on me this year, which I can't figure out why, because I had one successfully all winter last winter, so I don't know what the
Mhm.
deal is.
Hmm.
Um, but I think people like to start with bread, but you could start with anything, like start with guacamole or start with salsa, right? Like it's actually super easy to make salsa. Um, whatever that looks like for you.
Mhm.
Kind of what are the
Yeah.
things that you eat on a regular basis, and can you choose a different option?
Hmm. Yeah. I personally want to be somebody that makes sourdough. And I think one day when I am bored, I will get there. Right now, I would rather go to Whole Foods and pay $7 for the homemade sourdough that they make every day. Like
Which you
that is
should.
my jam.
Yeah.
Like that's what
Yum.
I know myself and like I want to be that person. I'm just not in
I wish
that
more than anything I could eat bread.
state of my life. Yeah, I know. Sad. Yeah. Or I'll buy like this is my season right now is like I will buy pay a little bit extra and buy something that's made for me whole than make it myself. And that's really fine too for me.
I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
There's
Nope.
nothing wrong with that.
I
That's for
did
sure.
used to beat myself up about it like, oh, like this
Everyone
person
else
is
makes
making
bread.
sourdough. Yeah, like
You
these
know how
people
long
have
it
their
takes a whole
shit
day and a
together.
half to
It's
make bread.
ins I like calculated. I'm like, I would rather just pay money for it personally. And other people are amazing and can do it, but like
Mhm.
I right now I can't. I can't put that on my plate,
Yeah, no, I think that's very
literally or
valid. You got a
physically.
lot going on.
Yeah. So,
Awesome. Um, my favorite thing, if you were to do one thing this week, is to critically look. This is a hard one, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Critically look at the things in your house. And is the majority of it processed or ultra processed? Or is the majority of it not processed slash like hardly processed, like milk, cheese, dairy, eggs? Eggs are technically processed, whatever. And really take a critical look at that and think, what is one small thing that I could change here?
mhm. Yeah.
And start there.
Yeah,
At
I
the
love
end of the
that.
day, it's not about your artificial dyes and your seed oils. It's about eating whole, unprocessed foods first and then looking at other things.
Totally. Yeah. I along with that, I think just like focus on how you feel throughout the day.
Uh-huh.
And if you are someone that like gets like you maybe you work a desk job, which
Mm-hmm.
most of us do. Um, just like take a peek at like, oh, around like after lunchtime, I just get so tired and like I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like moving, I don't feel like going to the gym, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Like just look at some other factors like did I drink enough water? Like what was my lunch like? And then try
Mm-hmm.
like playing with switching out for something different and just see how you feel and just
Mm-hmm.
really focus on that part.
It's
And
a
I
great
think
tip.
it'll lead you to where you want to make changes.
That is a great tip. All
Yes.
right. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Follow, subscribe, leave us a review. Bye.
Bye.